Hello and welcome. Thanks for being here today and taking the time to explore a topic that I am highly passionate about. If you have visual or hearing needs, I've placed a QR code for the slides here and at the end of the presentation. Feel free to grab that now if you need it. Co-creation of value is one of the newest concepts in ITIL v4. And in many other frameworks and methods, involving users in the process of building services and products is not so new. Have you ever built something from scratch? Something that didn't exist? No recipe, no instructions, like you're the first person to build it ever, an inventor. How can a person do this with no experience, no experts or lessons to guide them in the build? More importantly, how can a whole team of people do this and agree on how it should be built? I'm Beran, and I build service management products and services. Last year, all the way back in 2021, I was assigned to an HR portal project. This client was building an employee portal that would be used by over 28,000 employees and contractors for a $14 billion retail company. Their current portal had complaints and really wasn't providing the value that employees and HR staff needed. Complaints like, each brand has its own look and feel. It feels very disjointed. I use the portal, but then I had to call anyway. I have to train each employee how to use the HR portal. And the number to call when you're sick isn't in there anywhere. And this was the portal. It's not half bad. There's prominent search, there's good branding, lots of color, and those are real employees up at the top there, which they clearly value. But how many times have you gone to an HR portal to explore resources? We're not mining for gold here. I just need our policies. And how many labels do we need for people to understand that these are links? There's a ton of opportunity here. From those examples to also, there weren't enough ways to just navigate and explore and connect to HR through this portal. And that lack of navigation really hurts the usability of any application. And so HR went to IT to get their portal rebuilt. The problem is that IT and HR already built this one. So they didn't know how, or they already would have. So they hired us to design it, which is so much fun. We get to make people's lives better. We get to help them maximize their benefits from HR, and we get to build something sexy. Fun job, right? But this blank white screen is where so many teams get stuck. They either don't know what needs to be built, or they build something and it doesn't work like they need it to, and we don't know how to make it work like we need it to. So people take a lot of different routes from here. Some will buy something pre-built, a template. Some will look at examples and what others have done and try to mimic or copy them. The problem was that this team just did that and it didn't work. So they were ready to get it done right, and they were ready to get it done quickly. They were trying to get out of a blank slate paralysis, when people lack both the expertise and the information needed to make the right decisions. So we suggested user research. We wanted to inform our designs and inform our decisions. We wanted to speak with and watch users interact with HR and understand what they like and what they dislike, and start exploring how to digitize that. And just like most of our clients, they completely declined. I used to never really understand why people avoided user research. I wondered what stops people from wanting to build something that their users want. And what I realized is that people have been seriously burned by research. Some people believe that research is going to waste people's time. Like they're imagining executives listening to employees about how they work, or that it's going to waste people's money. There may be a perception that research is expensive or they got ripped off before. People sometimes fear that they're going to look insincere or stupid or disconnected because they're supposed to already know the answers to these questions. And that'll make them look bad, which is similar. Well, like I should know these answers. People are also afraid that it'll cause delays. Valid fear. I'm sure a lot of projects have been put on hold to conduct research. And people are also afraid that research will not come to any actual conclusions because users are stupid. And many of these are valid fears. However, that last one is wrong. Users are not stupid. They're just like you and I. They just don't understand themselves very well. User research is the discipline of learning about users' needs and thought processes by studying how they perform tasks, observing how they interact with a product, or by using other data-driven strategies. It's using analytics to capture user behaviors and other measurements to understand how to best serve their needs and meet your objectives, whether that's your user's objective, your team's goals, or your whole organization's mission. Research, executed properly, can really extract some major insights into what needs to be changed and where people are stuck, which really isn't that tough. But my point, though, is that research doesn't have to be a waste of time, nor does it have to be expensive. Let me prove it to you. So here's the pitch. To convince our client, we offered to conduct some informal employee interviews free of charge to see what kind of information we could discover. We asked for 5 people for 30 minutes. So let's look at some of the results. People want a portal that is easy to use. This is not the kind of insight you can expect from good research. Yet so many people think that this is the outcome. Here's the actual insight we gained. My team doesn't have computers, so we're not going to be able to use the portal. And this is the kind of insight that projects need. And teams who don't do any research may never discover this simple insight waiting to be shared and waiting to be learned. User research will teach you about the constraints and limitations of your users. Here's another one. People like nice looking applications. This is another fake result, of course, because you cannot simply ask, do you like good looking applications? The answer is going to be yes all the time. Research is an art form. It's a way of walking around a question. It's a way to get the answer without asking the question at all. Here's another. Agent pay is cut for doing anything other than taking calls on their computer. Research will uncover not only the technical limitations, but also existing process limitations and adjacent constraints. As it turns out, customer service contractors use Citrix, and their every click and action on that computer is tracked and measured. Agents must take calls as soon as their shift starts or they're docked pay. Using HR during contracted hours will literally lower their paycheck. People would like an easy way to get in touch with their HR representative. I guess if you conduct poor research, you can expect poor results. This is another fake response, of course, but wait until you see the real insight. I'm not going to ask my team to put in self-service tickets with HR because that's what I do. I take care of their HR problems and make them happy. That's what I love about being a people manager. What powerful insight. HR would have never gotten this kind of information by conducting these interviews. Would Terry have actually shared this with HR? I doubt it. But our researchers built trust with Terry, and as a third party, he trusted us to understand his value to his team and his value to the organization and represent that fairly to the project team. So needless to say, these results were enough to convince our client. The value of these insights was just too shocking, so they were sold on user research. So we developed a cross-functional team of change champions to leverage throughout the project, which was perfect because it didn't take very long for us to hit our first roadblock. For context, on these internal employee portals, there are basically two user interface patterns. One is to search and find what you need, and the other is to browse around in categories and knowledge and forms and figure out what you can get out of HR. Let me show you on a wireframe. When you're wireframing, you're kind of like doodling what a product or service will look like or be like. In this example, we're starting to visualize what these pages will have on them, where the buttons will be, what navigation elements, content will exist, where they'll be on the page. And this helps facilitate the teamwork toward a finished product. So you might have 10 of these wireframes for each of the pages on your portal. Once the rough areas are mapped out and people start to agree on the general layouts, designers will start to add fidelity or resolution. They're going to add additional details to build up a realistic prototype. And as we're adding fidelity and details, we realize that we don't know what these categories are. When people click on knowledge categories to drill into what's there, what should they be called? And what icons should be used to represent those categories? And this is a detail in UX and UI that is super important. Where should the payroll stuff be? And what should we call it? Compensation? Pay and benefits? Payroll? This seemingly minor decision can make or break a usability study or even a product. If you get the categories here wrong, you're going to watch users flail and flounder as they try to navigate and explore resources. So to help identify the information architecture, the taxonomy, and the categories, we went to our change champions. Now, practice designers know that just asking those change champions what the categories should be would deliver terrible results. We needed a way to get unbiased answers for how people sort out the various aspects of HR. So we decided to run an open card sort activity. So let's walk through it. Card sort is a great way to get your users to design your information structure and capture their mental models without too much effort and without too much bias. Participants are given a set of cards. Each card has one thing on it. You set these cards in front of your users and ask them to group them. Here you can see one participant's opinion, grouping food, and another user's opinion to sort them slightly differently. Next, we give participants a blank Post-it to label each of those groups with a name that makes sense to them. Predictably, the names of these categories match their color, and the other using their food group names. Of course, both these examples have some issues. Some people call tomatoes a fruit. Some people claim that bananas are white on the inside. What about eggs? I mean, they're kind of clear, but white, but yellow. It doesn't matter because we weren't actually doing food. But what this activity does is it indirectly guides participants to group items in ways that make sense to them logically, and then name those groups with words that make sense to them too. And oftentimes the results, the most logical, the most simple result is often the best result. Now, like I said, we're not grouping food here. This isn't going to help us at all. We actually took our cards were printed off HR policy names, HR services, knowledge-based titles, and common requests that people make of HR. So our participants were going to group our HR knowledge for us. And if you're thinking there's a lot of different ways to sort that stuff, you are right. But there are trends and patterns that appear. So here are some of the results being presented during analysis. This here is an example of a prioritization matrix, which can help identify similarly grouped items, like this group that I've zoomed in here, that seems to all be related to employee performance. So Talent review and succession planning should be in the same category as those other darker entries. So then we can look at the individual categorization and look manually for trends as well. Here are the categories that people put that same talent review knowledge article into. And a quick glance on the right there, you can see those categories. A quick glance shows that there's a trend. One word is used way more than all the others. And I love this example because although only 2 users use the same name, you can tell from all the results that performance will likely get most of our people to the right spot. Here are 2 more examples where the category users picked was pretty obvious. You can see we're obviously going to have a benefits category and a travel category. And here's another example where the research was way less conclusive. And where does that hiring employee guide belong? Is it for hiring? Is it for managers? So we took these results and came up with what we thought would work for a majority of employees. And this is the result. Here you can see some of the categories that our results led us to, and not all of these were even suggested by user research. For example, team member management wasn't suggested by any user, but after testing the managers, we realized that there were a ton of services and policies and processes related to the employee lifecycle. It needed its own category. And you can see we didn't just choose performance, we did career performance, because it really made people realize that this is not about my performance individually, but my performance to HR. This took 1 week of research. Only 1 week. Only 1 week of waiting for participants to complete the card sort. And then after we got the results back, it only took 1 day for us to analyze and mock up a prototype, a simulation of the portal that we could test with real users doing real tasks. So how is this better? We tested this prototype with another set of participants, people who didn't do the card sort. And then we assigned them to tasks like find the work from home policy or request time off for a new baby. And then we watched them use the portal. And here's the bottom half of the page so you can see a bit more. Hopefully you can see all the different ways we let people explore and discover HR services and information. But the best part is that this actually worked. We ran a simulation on the old portal and tested search times and reading times on policy, and then compared it to the new portal. And these were our results. Not only were people able to find what they wanted, they got there faster. They could read through the results to find their answer in under half the time. And our rewritten knowledge articles greatly reduced the time to understand policy. This was another adjustment we made based on user research. We knew we needed simple to read and understandable policies instead of a bunch of legal talk. And these efforts really paid off. They paid off in reducing complexity and reducing the number of calls to HR ops teams. People could understand the policy so they didn't have to ask questions. And how do you think people felt about the new HR portal? Of course, they loved it. They built it. They helped us write the knowledge articles and update the policies to be readable. They chose the categories and the locations of things on the portal. They chose the navigation elements, the colors, the pictures, everything. And this is what co-creation is all about. It's not about giving all the power to your users. It's not about wasting time and money on research. Co-creation means that we succeed together. It means that we fail together. Imagine how you could use the design cycle to build new processes or improve your existing services. Or maybe this is something you want to leverage internally. How do your teams feel about your change management process? The design cycle is a great tool to use to explore problems. So pick it up and start using it to improve and prioritize work. And when I'm talking to companies about this recently, I also recommend involving your users now to start adapting to this new model, because it does take practice. You're not going to get results right away, and you're not going to get good at it right away. It takes a while to start delivering positive results, just like Agile, just like Lean, and other ways of working. And card sorts are just the tip of the iceberg. They're just one very obvious example of a design activity you can use to research people. There's interviews, there's field observation, usability testing, work diaries, and many, many other ceremonies and artifacts to help guide processes and lead teams towards success. But this is the overall value of co-creation. It builds products and services that meet expectations and follow existing patterns and trends. As a result, go lives are simpler, adoption increases, and this starts to blur the lines between project teams and those whom the projects serve. So, if you're stuck with your enterprise service management program or just designing projects, products, and services, I can help you get unstuck. Reach out and connect. I hope to meet you. The slides and images from this presentation, along with more details like what tools we used and some templates, are available in that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner. Click on co-creation once you get there. I also host a podcast called Ticket Volume, where we explore these topics and have guests and experts on to discuss things like this and other service management topics. Consider subscribing. And feel free to reach out to me directly. I love connecting with people and solving problems. Matt@ticketvolume.com. Finally, I hope that you found this topic interesting and my presentation well done. And let's open it up for some questions. If there's some Q&A,